Hey guys, TJ Schwartz here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the shop. Today I am upgrading my TW90 grinder. It's a grinder made by Travis Wirtz. It's a great machine, but there's one little thing I want to improve. I'll show you what that is. So this assembly right here is called the flat platen. As you can see, the belt goes over it. It's got a back plate so that you're essentially doing a flat grind on a knife bevel up against this back plate. And if you'd imagine, there's quite a bit of pressure when you're pushing the knife against the belt and the belt getting pushed against the metal. And when there's pressure and there's friction, what you get is heat. And a combination of heat, various particulates, and debris, what you end up with is these pressure areas that become rippled to some effect. In other words, when you push your bevel against the belt and the belt gets pushed against this, the belt takes the shape of the platen and you end up with ripples in the grind of the actual bevel of the knife. Now, with a really coarse belt like a 60 grit, you don't really notice it because the grit's so aggressive that I don't think it conforms very well to the platen. But when I go to try to do like a satin finish and I go all the way down to like a 400 grit belt, then I start to get the actual ripple effect coming through because it's such a thin, fine belt. And so the problem with this is I don't think there's really a way around it. With steel, I think I could probably remake one of these and harden it, and that would add durability. But at the end of the day, I think anything with steel, like you're going to have a decent amount of wear. And so some guys will pull this off. As you can see, there's two screws, one here and one up here. You can see the threads here. That's how you actually take the platen off. And then some people just surface grind it every so often in order to keep it smooth. But I want to make it last a little bit longer. I don't want to be pulling it off and surface grinding it quite so much. And so my solution, which is similar to what a lot of people have done, is I'm going to insert a piece of high temperature glass on the front of the platen. And so I've got a couple pieces of glass made up from a local glass store. I just called them and I gave them the dimensions and I said it needs to be that, high temperature. I believe it's like silicone. Honestly, I don't know. Just asking for the high temperature, basically fireplace glass that you would see, like, a glass panel in a fireplace. And they should be able to hook you up. But there's a couple other little things that I have to do to make it work right. And so I'm going to walk you through that. I also ordered an extra platen from Travis Wirtz. In case this goes south, at least I have a method for grinding. So got a backup, and then maybe I'd put glass on this one too if it does work. So I've got a piece of glass here. I had a couple of these made up in case I ruin one. I'm noticing the way it was cut, there's a better edge and then there's a more wavy edge. So it seems like in a way there is a top and a bottom. I don't know if it'd be the case with any glass cutting system, but what I want to do is I want to reduce this really keen 90-degree corner down to just a micro bevel, just a little tiny little radius. The way that I want to do my grinds, I think it'll be improved when I have not quite the sharpest radius underneath the belt right there. And so I've got a belt loaded up here. I haven't taken the old platen off. There's an area of the platen that doesn't get any abuse and it's still nice and flat. So I'm still going to use it just quickly to put a bevel on this before I take it off and proceed with putting the glass on it. Make sure, of course, with glass or any grinding you're doing, make sure you're using the right stuff, guys. It's pretty nasty. So I feel pretty good about that. Like I said, that's just a tiny edge break, maybe only like 15 thou, 10 thou radius there. Hopefully it'll help keep from gouging my grinds, and maybe it'll work good. All right, now I'm gonna pull this platen off, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna affix the glass to the platen. Also, before I take it off, you can see the bolts where they are revealed here. I want to check exactly what the space is in terms of that recess, because I'm going to be removing material from the platen, and I want to know how deep those are. So we're looking at just over 50 thou in recess there. So I know that if I'm going to take more than 50 thou of material off the face of this, I'm going to either have to shorten those bolts or add a washer to the back. Obviously, you don't want to go too far because you're going to not have as much thread engagement. So my game plan for doing this is to use an adhesive to hold the glass on that is strong enough to hold it on, but also removable if I apply enough heat with like a torch or something. That may not work out very well down the road, but I at least want the option. I'd originally thought about just like sandblasting both of them and JB welding it, but then I realized that this glass will eventually wear out. And do I want to throw the whole package out altogether, or do I want to try to save the platen? So I talked to another knife maker, and I got the recommendation to use like a really durable double-sided tape. But what I want to do so that I can trust this even more is the belt comes over the top, and it's going to always be pulling the glass down. And so if I machine a recess out of this guy, and leave only a ledge at the bottom and perhaps also the top where this sits down in, even if it is only 50 thou like we measured a second ago, it'll be enough that when the belt's pressing on it, it doesn't have any give or flexibility downward, and it can't slowly work itself free, because I think it'd be an ugly sight if a piece of glass went around that bottom pulley. I think it would shatter and be ugly. I had heard a few horror stories about that. So I do have a CNC mill in my shop. That's how I'm going to be machining this slot. I think you could do it just as easily with a manual mill or something like that. But yeah, that's how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to walk you through. I'm actually going to use conversational programming to do a facing operation to actually remove that area. So I've got my platen in the vise here. It's not centered because my vise is so off center that I can't overhang it that much and not be outside of my working area. And so now I'm going to probe this guy, and I'm going to contemplate exactly how to program it to best machine it. But first off, probing just tells the machine where it actually is, and is just a starting point. So here we are. I've got the platen in the machine. All I've got to do is probe it in so the machine knows where it's at, and then I'm going to write a code to machine our little slot out. So I'm designing a conversational program here in PathPilot. My glass piece is 9 inches wide. My height is 3 inches. Now it's actually 2 inches wide in the wide direction, but because I'm using a round tool that's a 1/2 inch diameter, I want it to travel past the material and then come back in, leaving 90-degree corners. As you can see, there's these radiuses. I don't want that, so with 3-inch clearance, that'll be plenty of over travel. I don't want any radius beyond just the radius of the tool. We're going to start at the 0 plane, which is what I probed in at the surface, and we're going to go 10 thou at a time down to 50 thou deep. This is really, really conservative. This is going to be kind of slow, but it doesn't matter too much. Step over is going to be 1/8 of an inch, 4,000 RPM, feed rate of 30, and going to have coolant going. So yeah, I'm going to try this. I'm actually going to set up my work coordinate to be a little bit higher, and I'm going to run it maybe 1 inch above the part and air cut it and just make sure that it looks good and it's in the right location. I'll show you that. I'm going to run it. So again, this should be running 1 inch above the surface where it's actually going to be machining. Let's make sure it's in the right spot. Already, I don't like the way it generated it. That straight plunge in. As you can see, it's wanting to do a spiral like this. I really don't like that. So I'm going to try a different conversational method. So sadly, guys, I lied. I might not use that conversational programming. I'm probably just going to jog it back and forth kind of manually. The problem I have is under the pocket tab, it wants to plunge into the center, which would make sense if it was a pocket. And I was going to try to trick the machine into thinking this was a pocket. And I want it to start off the part and then enter it from the side, cutting laterally rather than plunging. and then the other option is to face it. But the problem I have with the face is that it's going to want to go left to right, changing direction. If I could turn it 90 degrees so that it was going front to back in the Y direction and going off the sides, then that's what I would do. But I don't see a way to turn it 90 degrees, so that's fine. This is kind of a unique little operation that I could program on the computer, but it's pretty quick to just jog it back and forth with the pendant here. So I'll show you how I do that. So I've got my tool positioned. I typed into the MDI line the location I wanted. That's where I would want the first pass to go across in the Y direction. I've got my feed rate and RPM set to where I want it. And so over here in the MDI line, if I literally just type in Y 1.5, it's going to tell the tool to go to the 1.5 coordinate in the Y direction, which is going to go across that part exactly the way I want it. My Y0 is in the center of that platen, so it's 1 inch on each side of Y0 that I have to cut. So 1.5 is going to be a ½ inch past, which should be good. So I'm going to turn coolant on, and I'm going to go Y 1.5 and hit enter. So now I'm going to step it over in the X direction and go back. I'm just going to go back and forth, guys. I got to shut the door, so it's not going to be as good at filming. So here's what I'm doing to step it over. I'm at X minus 3.5, which means I've traveled 3/4 of an inch. I'm doing a 1/4 inch step over, so I'm going to go up here in the MDI line, if you can see, X minus 3.25. So I'm telling it to go from minus 3.5, which is where it's at, to minus 3.25. So when I hit that, it moves over, and I'm currently sitting at Y minus 1.3, which just clears the platen. And so I'm going to go Y positive 1.3 and hit enter. And it's cutting back across. So I'm just basically writing my own G code. I'm just writing the code to go back and forth, and it looks slow when it's on camera, but I can just type pretty quick and make it go back and forth. I'm gonna walk all the way down. This is at 25 thou deep, so we'll see how that looks. So I made it all the way across, and I put the glass in here just to check and see how it fits. Just as I suspected, the slot's exactly 9 inches and the glass is exactly 9 inches. And so what I have to do here now is I think I need to add like 5 thou, 10 thou, one more step over so that the glass can fall in freely. Obviously you can't force it, it's glass, it'll just crack. So I'm going to do one more little trim pass right there, and I think it'll work good. Already looks kind of nice. So here we go, fits in there really nice. As you can see, it's only a 25 thou step. I'm not going to go the full 50 thou because I don't think it matters. I think just enough to actually catch onto it is plenty. As you can see, it fits really nice. The only thing is I've got all these burrs I got to clean up. I'm going to pull that steel out of the vise here. I'm going to clean it up really good. I'm going to have to clean both of these, degrease them heavily if I'm going to use any kind of adhesive on them. And then I'm going to stick them together and put it back on the machine and see how it goes. This is a side note, guys, but I just wanted to note the importance of fixturing. Now, work holding is kind of everything when it comes to CNC machining. So over here you can see the really nice step over. You have like a really nice satin finish right there. And then as it gets over to where this part was overhanging off the vise, you can see where it started to vibrate more and started to chatter. You can just easily see the gradient of it getting worse. Now in this application it doesn't really matter, and I didn't really have much of an option. But if you were making a bunch of these, obviously you could see why you'd want to hold the whole length of it. But that just illustrates just a perfect image of how good work holding and bad work holding compares. So I've got my glass and my platen cleaned up with dish soap, water, dried. Then I used rubbing alcohol, or actually just straight alcohol, and stripped as much of the oils off as I could. That's imperative for any kind of adhesive tape. And so I'll probably hit it with alcohol one more time, but this is the tape I'm using. It's 3M VHB. You can see the number in there. Coincidentally, it's 2 inches wide. And also, this doesn't have the foam core. This is just a layer of adhesive. It sticks really well to really smooth surfaces, and it doesn't have a bunch of sponge to it, which you don't want for this application. I'm going to see how this works. I think it'll be pretty good. I'm going to cut a piece that's exactly 9 inches long. I'm going to lay it in there, and then we're going to stick them together. So right now I'm going to also make sure I don't have any bubbles in here as best I can. Make sure I get the right side of my glass going the right direction. I'm going to hit this glass with alcohol one more time. Move the backing. You can see how thin that VHB is. Really, really thin. Make sure I get this the right way. I did have an orientation I was hoping for. That's the bottom. So let's start at the bottom. Now this VHB really likes pressure. It's how it seats. So obviously with glass you can only do so much. You don't want to clamp it too much, but I'm just pushing it down, trying to seat that stuff really good. So you can see there the layer of glass and the steel behind it, with a little shelf top and bottom just to hang on to it just enough. So there's one more adjustment I need to make that I had wondered about. So as you can see, the glass makes it quite a bit thicker, and so using the TW90 I have this adjustment factor here, and so I can sink it down in so that the glass still remains flush with these rollers on the corners, which is really what you want. In order to sink it that low, I would have to push it beyond where the platen will actually fit, because the platen contacts the rubber wheel before it's sunken in enough. And I think I do have just enough adjustability here to get it down and flush. But if I were to get to where I just have like the tiniest margin between this and the wheel, that would also make me a little nervous that eventually it's going to rub and heat up. So I'm going to grind off the ends of this actual platen a little bit. That's going to require me to put that other backup platen on, which is part of the reason why I had it on deck. So I'm going to do that and grind it down and then refit it. So I ground it down and switched it out. So now I've got clearance on both sides. It's flush here. The way I know that is I use this piece of angled aluminum here, and I was able to make sure that there's just a tiny gap from the rubber wheel to the piece of aluminum, meaning the belt does contact this the whole way, and the wheel is recessed in just like a 32nd of an inch. And so that's what I generally try to shoot for when I adjust these up. I've also used it up here to make sure that the wheels are parallel and in line with this so that the belt tracks well. And so yeah, it's sitting really good. I've got it tightened down. I'm gonna see how it runs. So I've got it running. The belt seems to be tracking really well. Good contact. You can see the glass there. I think it's going to be a success, guys. So to anyone who is wanting to see me grind a knife on that new platen, please just stay tuned to my channel. I'm working on a kind of a more comprehensive grinding video. And also, I want to actually put some reps in and grind a handful of knives before I go and make a video about it on this new platen. And I want to see how reliable it is. I want to see if it's working, how it's wearing. Obviously, I could grind a knife on it right now, but I don't know if it would tell me that much without some experience. So please stay tuned on the channel, and I'm going to just have, like I said, a more comprehensive grinding video coming up. And I really appreciate you watching this video. I really would love it if you guys could just, like, comment, subscribe, interact with the video in any way that you can. It helps a ton. The YouTube algorithm is something that I don't know much about, but I do know that, just a little bit of support that way goes a long way for me. So anyways, thanks guys. I really hope you like the channel, and I hope you like the content. Please stick around. Thank you.